And we're back. Here we are. We're excited to continue our story. And
Yeah.
so we hope
So
you've enjoyed so far what you've been listening to about from our birth to coming together.
so you've heard Carlos's story and you've heard mine. And now we're going to kind of dual ask each other questions
Yeah.
from, the beginning of our relationship.
That's
Sound
right.
good?
Sure. We'll go back and forth, just kind of ping pong here. And first impressions. So, what did you think of this handsome stud when you first met me? What's I overweight?
Well, yeah,
I've been through cycles and stuff, but
yeah, for sure. Yeah, so you were pretty heavy set,
okay.
but you had just lost some weight,
Okay.
right?
This is your first impression, not
My first
mine.
impression, yeah. So
And let's what was I guess our official first impression would have been in Mexico. We kind of covered that a little bit, I think,
yeah,
but so that would be my thoughts of where I would think of my first impression where I seen you get out of your car and Michelle and I were going to greet you at the parking lot in Mexico. Isn't that funny how I totally remember it?
yeah. So for me, it was just kind of like, oh, hey, what are you doing here? Because we had met before. And he was married, and anyways, it
Yeah, it's
wasn't
just
anything.
friendly.
Yeah, it was just friendly.
Because she didn't
So
know what she didn't know. So her first impression is way different than mine.
yeah, for sure. So, I was just like, I literally was like, hey, what are you doing here? And, then I got to hear that, he came and just to hang out or whatever. And I actually at that point didn't even know that you
Yeah, that I
were
was,
split from your wife.
yeah, we were separated and going through a divorce. And so,
No, but this is mine.
oh,
So yeah, first impression, physical impression, right? Caterpillar mustache.
oh, really? Okay.
The caterpillar mustache.
I think I have a picture of that somewhere.
Yeah, real thick. No. Yeah, so, then that day, hanging out, and then I could feel that you were like, you kept asking me questions. And so I could feel that you were intrigued, and obviously I asking you questions back found out where you were at, and I was like, oh, dang. Like, where's your wife? Right.
Yeah,
uh
exactly.
so that was that. Yeah. And then so then it became obvious that he wanted to hang out. He was going to be in town for a little while, and those kind of things. And so at that point I was like, okay, I'm feeling this vibe from him. And
After the first day, even in Mexico, our initial
well, after
contact.
that, because then you were like, you started texting me like, hey, when can we hang out? Yeah. And so then that's when I messaged my sister and was like, hey, I'm totally getting this vibe from Chuck, because that's what he went by at the time.
Yeah.
Um, can you talk to him? And she never did.
Nope. Dang
So what
it.
was your first impression?
Well, yeah. So it's interesting because I had always, when I saw you at the event, was my first impression of really like noticing you for some reason.
Mm-hmm. We talked about that a little
Yeah.
bit.
And so then, but that was just like the preliminary, like really intrigued me about, oh, I wonder what's going on. And then getting to know your sister, Michelle. So I kind of had a little bit of an advantage over you because I kind of knew your bloodline, if you would, or something. I don't know how to
He
say
was
that.
good friends with my sister.
Yeah. And
So
so I had already had like this really cool connection with Michelle and a great friendship that had developed. So it's like, oh wow, you have a sister, and oh wow, she's single. Like, so then I'd say my first impression was definitely that you were super beautiful. Like, and I remember, like I said, that you got out of your car. Michelle and I were walking up to you in the parking lot in Mexico, and I was just like, hey, I gave you a big hug. Do you remember that? Because I was like, gosh, dang, this girl's beautiful. What the heck? I'm gonna get me a hug.
Oh gosh, you needed a hug.
I did. But no, I was like, she's very attractive, and I'd never really looked at her that way. So I think that for me was my first impression was like, wow, this is Michelle's sister. Michelle's awesome and great personality and really amazing, giving, honoring person. And then I had seen a little bit of Chantel's compassion at that business event I was telling you guys about before. And then also, I also knew from like posts and stuff on Facebook that she was a mother. So then I was like, wow, like I'd seen some pictures of her posting her kids. So I was like, oh, she's proud of her kids too, which that's a big deal for me because I do love kids still, not did, do love children, still do. But back then I'm saying I did. Um, and so it's like kind of cool to know that this woman really loved her children, one was proud of them essentially, because that was a little bit foreign in my previous marriage. So all right, and then the initial connection, what oh sorry, you can ask this next question.
So what was it? Well, I mean, this kind of part of it, right?
Yeah.
What was it that sparked your interest initially?
Oh yeah, I guess I kind of
We kind
what
of talked about it.
yeah sparked my interest was, again, I just described it. What
Yeah.
about you though? What sparked your interest in, I'm asking lots of questions, right? I'm pursuing, in a sense, I'm wanting to get to know you because I'm like, man, she's beautiful.
Yeah,
She
so
has kids.
I
Like,
was
this is cool.
I was at a point in my life where like I had done a lot of work, right? I had done a lot of work in healing in the relationship zone. Um, and it was really fascinating because I was kind of in a place where with my daughter's biological father, I had made a decision to kind of cut off all conversation with him, all communication. It was necessary for me at the time, as a mom and as a woman, and just protection and all of these different things. Um, and I had the funny thing is driving to Mexico. I may have said this in the other video, I'm not sure, that I'd had a conversation with my daughter's grandmother
Yeah.
on that side.
Yep.
And I said to her, I love you. I always want you to be in our lives, and I have to make this choice, right? And so it was a very impactful moment for me because I felt a release. I felt a release and a freedom that I hadn't felt in a long time. I was in that relationship for, 5 years, off a full year and back another year. So 7 years total was, and then beyond. So 8.5 years that I was, stretched in that capacity. And so this was my final release. And the reason that's so important is because what happens when we release is we actually make room mentally, emotionally, for the new, right? And so I had had that release on that trip down to Mexico. And here, there's this man, which I had no idea what the future held in that moment. But looking back, I can see exactly what God was doing, right? So, he's interested, he's like wanting to hang out. And again, I said to Michelle, like, hey, can you handle that? Like, I'm not interested in any rebound. Like, I'm in a good place. I'm healthy. I'm whole. And like, I'm ready to receive the man I'm going to marry. Like, essentially, that's where I was at. Right. But I didn't see him as that at the moment. And, it was, after you had, like, he was like, what are you doing Saturday? And I was like, I'm going to the swap meet. And he's like, do you need somebody to push the stroller?
Yep.
So I had a conversation with Michelle. She's like, hey, I haven't been able to talk to him. Can you handle it? Sure, I guess. So I was like, yeah, let's hang out. again, great personality, definitely am open to friendship and like want to hang out. So that's what we did. We hung out and then we went and we walked on the beach and I had that conversation. I said, look, I recognize that you're going through a very difficult time. You've got a lot going on. And I definitely feel this vibe from you. So I just need to be clear in where I'm at in that, handle your business. We can be friends, we can hang out um, and then it was like, again, I said my piece and released that.
Well, yeah, I think that's a good indicator that I must have done a good job validating you and been like, I can understand where you're coming from.
Yeah, I mean, you were totally like, cool. Like, you
Yeah, I
didn't make
get
a
it.
big deal
Makes
about it.
sense.
Right.
Then let's just be friends. Let's work on our friendship.
Yeah. And then,
So that was a specific moment then, a
yeah, so
conversation
that's the
that kind
next
of
question.
pivotal. Yeah, kind of made things
You
pivotal.
you asked me the next question because that was the what
Yeah,
led into the next moment.
yeah, for sure, for sure. That was a specific moment. Absolutely, and it was cool. I mean, it was really a good moment for me too of just recognizing, I get it. I just friendships are best right now. It was. I mean, I was cool with it. I was like, I just want to make a good friend, and yeah, for sure. I
And you
mean,
were
you were
and you were
beautiful and gorgeous.
intrigued.
Yeah, for sure. I was. I mean, again, so many new things of here. I'd been married for almost 13 years, and in that marriage, there was a lot of challenges, of course. Um, so a little bit of that story, but in that process of those challenges, one of them was that she didn't really want to have children. So that really intrigued me about you. And she said that throughout the years. I'm not
Mhm.
saying anything new that she wouldn't say. And so it was her, husband who passed away. It was his idea to have kids. So the fact is that you had kids and you were really committed to them, and they were like your life. You were working to love and bless your kids. And I was like, well, that's different. And the fact that you were like really a hustler too. You were working to working two jobs. That was super intriguing to me too, because again, my relationship with my previous wife was I did all the working. We did work in music together, but like that was just a different energy. It was
Mhm.
really interesting. So I was like, this is pretty cool. This is totally different for sure. So I was intrigued by it because I hadn't been around that in many years or anyone like you that way.
Yeah.
So, anyways, what
So
about
there was so we had hung out a couple of times and then there was what we like to call it our first date,
yeah,
kind of, like we were friends, but we were obviously like enjoying hanging out. We were
sure.
enjoying each other's company. We were building a friendship for sure and really getting to know each other. And there started to be some like real chemistry, right? Amongst our conversations and whatnot.
I mean, you were easy to talk to for sure.
Yeah.
Obviously, I mean, we talk about that how you had so much understanding of trauma and what people are like that just need to be validated and heard and understanding of their trauma. And
Mhm.
so you were different for sure. You definitely were genuinely interested. You talked to me and I felt so comfortable. Like, and I didn't feel like there's another thing that was really impressive now that I'm thinking back is like you didn't make me feel embarrassed for wanting to have big dreams.
Mm.
That was kind of a big deal to me because I never had a friend that actually could see that potential in dreams that I had, because I've always been a big dreamer. I've always wanted to change the world. I feel like ever since I was a little kid, I wanted to be Superman. I wanted to be an evangelist. I wanted to be the next Billy Graham, and then the next Superman, literally with a cape, and like that was like my thing. I wanted to change the world, and a lot of that was like really squashed, and throughout my previous marriage, I never felt like that I could just fly and do whatever. Like, I could do anything. However, when I met you, it's like there was this real interesting level of like, yeah, I believe in that. You could do that. Wow. It was like, and the way you listened to me and really were interested in that, I was like, It was really cool. Like you pulled it out of me too.
Mm.
That's what was really fun. So yeah, there was a lot of cool moments like that. I mean, so then
So this date in particular,
okay.
right?
Are we
Yeah,
talking about wings?
yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
See, these are moments, right? These are definite moments in
Well,
our relationship where
I
things
can't remember,
shifted.
was Hazel there? No.
No, no, no. This one we
No.
got a babysitter. I think your mom was babysitting. But I think before that, actually, the cool thing was I was living on Michelle's couch, Michelle and Jay Taylor. And so and it was right around the holidays. So I remember before this time too, I think Christmas came and before we did this date. I can't remember. But the point is I remember
I
your
can't
mom
remember
being
either.
really welcoming. I got to go to the Christmas dinner and there was still not like this, like, oh, but there was, I wanted to sit by her. I want to talk to her at the family dinner. I'm like, I want to play with the kids, Mateo and Hazel. It's her kids. So I'm like, this is cool, and so, and it was the family like Christmas dinner. So I was there for the Christmas
Mhm.
holidays that year. And it just felt really comfortable. I remember your mom too was so amazing. I think that was like, it was like a whole different energy and different vibe than what I had been used to in my marriage. Because even with my um, previous wife, her parents, there was always tension when we got around her parents. Like you always felt like, yeah, like you were gonna get in trouble or something. And with you guys and your family and your mama, it's like freedom. That's all I can feel. It was like everyone was free. You didn't feel
Freedom
any judgment.
and
You
love.
felt a lot of love.
Yeah,
Exactly. A
and
ton of
love.
love. Your mom and Phil, dad, that was there, just golly. I mean, there's no wonder we've ended up where we are because they were amazing like that. Now that I'm thinking back, that's pretty precious. I remember that dinner
Mhm.
and that Christmas time. I never quite felt that kind um, of course, my mom would do that too, but I'm talking about since my marriage. I've
Right.
never been in a family that would greet me like this and love me. And they didn't really know me at the time. Michelle did, but that's about it. So it was really very unique. And that was a defining moment for me too, now that I'm looking back of how welcome the family was. And it's like, man, this is so cool just to be in that situation. So,
Mhm.
and I remember then our date. So it's kind of not an official date yet. It's still
We
kind of
just
like,
were going out.
yeah, it's like we're hanging out. We're gonna go. Actually, it was because we wanted to go watch the Lakers game. I
Mhm.
was super impressed. I'm like, oh my gosh, this woman likes sports. This is every man's
I'm
dream.
big Laker fans.
This woman likes sports. What? It's impossible. Because at the time, I just thought most women didn't like sports, and so
So I took him to, one of my local sports bar
yeah,
that I have gone to for years. They have great wings, and so we could watch the Laker game, get a beer and some wings.
yeah, that was kind of a shocker. I didn't drink back then. I was like, okay, I guess I'll overlook that. She drinks a little. I had some severe judgment back there on alcohol. Let's just be real. And so, because I never drank ever. Alcohol didn't touch these lips because yeah. Anyways, point being is that, so we went there and then I remember too, I ordered
Hold
like,
on, before that, or was
okay.
it after? Were we in the car after?
Oh, it was actually before we went
It
in.
was
You're
before.
right. Before we went in, she drove. It's just funny too. She was driving. It was her car.
I drove a lot.
Yeah.
I was kind of a control freak in the sense of driving. So anyways, I drove there and we were just talking and sitting in the car and this the reason this is a defining moment was because it revealed something to me. And so, he said to me, uh, so I have a question for you. He was like, do you always date black men? And that question was pretty wild for me because I was like, okay, here we go. Being a white woman who had dated black men, my experience was that most white men then would feel intimidated, right? Because I had dated black men. And so, he said it with this kind of confidence. And I answered him like, I was like, I it's not even about black or white. I just like somebody with a little bit more soul, right? I love the music. Like I'm a very soulful person. And it was so defining for me because he literally shrugged his shoulders. He was like, huh, I got soul. And I was like, it was like everything in me to like not have my jaw drop. Um,
Well, that I don't think at that point you actually knew that I could sing.
no, 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 no. Well, yes, I
Yeah,
did
you did
because I
because
had
you
heard
heard
you.
me sing at that.
But
That's right. Yeah, yeah.
it wasn't even
At an
about
event.
that. What it was about was my experience from men, okay, in the past and their insecurities in regarding that whole topic, all of those things. And then where he was at, really, the state of kind of brokenness, right?
Sure.
In the middle of a divorce, homeless, couch surfing, like identity was a
Oh
mess. Like
yeah.
he was a hot mess, we'll be honest. But in that state, to have the confidence and be like, I got soul was really, really appealing to me. It was like, wow, like that was really what intrigued me. And then
Yeah.
he proceeded to sing Boys to Men, which I love Boys to Men.
Yeah, I mean so this is a key element. We work with people all the time that, now we're doing matchmaking stuff for people and helping them, find their spouse. It's interesting. The one thing I want to talk about now that I'm thinking back to myself is we always tell them borrow the confidence. Well, if you're not feeling confident in something, you borrow it from what you are confident in. And matter of fact, a lot of people we work with are excellent like business owners and entrepreneurs. And I'm always like, you're super confident in your business, your roofing,
Mm-hmm.
your siding business. Like take that confidence and use it over here. And it's interesting. I look back and I realize that's what I was doing. Because you're right. I was freaking broken when it came to being a husband or being,
A
even
father,
a
a
father or
man.
even being qualified
Yeah.
to be with a woman at that point. I just felt like I wasn't qualified. Like I was such a loser when it came to that. But music, now there was some confidence. I'd sung me some songs, tens of thousands of hours of singing because my previous wife and I, we sang professionally. And I talked about that in my story, but it was like, I got me some soul. I could sing some Boys to Men. And like one of the one of the songs uh that it comes up a lot that's funny that was Boys to Men is one of them's in the Still Night, but the one that is famous, and matter of fact, on one of our cruises we went on, I won a contest singing this to her, essentially, but all the women in the crowd thought I was singing to them. And it's like, I'll make love to you like you want me to, and I'll hold you tight, baby, all through the night. I'll make love to you. So I'll make love, hold you tight. Throw your clothes on the floor. I'm gonna take my clothes off too. Yeah, it's
Who
fun.
times it? I'm just kidding. So, anyways,
So I was
again,
very confident. I was like, dang, I'm glad that's the one thing she said. Of all the things she could have said, let's go there for a second. That is true. Like, of all the
mhm,
things you could have said, if you would have said, well, I like men that are strong and buff, that's why I like black men are athletic, I would have been like, yeah.
yeah,
Oh. But once she said, they got soul. I'm like, yeah, I got soul. I was like, so you're saying I got a
yeah,
chance? That's
open
what I heard of.
that was his open door. He was like, all right, I got this.
Let's go. Let's go. So we go in the restaurant. This kind of pivotal moment too for me because I was a little bit surprised about some things. Because we this was our first experience going to dinner together. So I didn't actually know what to expect. I'd been with like cutesy little girls, as we call them now, that just are all like embarrassed to hang out. And they're like, oh, just I ordered wings. I'm like, oh, first of all,
Oh,
she's
salad.
yours. First of all, we're at a sports bar. Second of all, she loves sports, and she's like, "Ooh, give me a beer." I'm like, whoa, this is different. I'm like, order some wings and fries. I'm like, 20 wings. I'll probably eat most of them, but at least you can have a couple. Dang, I'm like, oh,
I mean, wow. It's a little
well,
extreme.
that was my impression in that moment because I mean, obviously she had really good manners. I'm just saying that I was so shocked because I'd been used to all these little, oh, I'm gonna get a salad like so I'm eating these wings. I'm like, I'm gonna have to order some more because I, of course, was large then. And anyways, it's funny to me to think back because that was a pivotal moment. Like, dang man, this girl is not only awesome to talk to. She loves soul. She wants, but then she can eat and she's not embarrassed. She doesn't like try to be all hiding behind something or fake. She's just real and raw and hangs out there. Give me a beer. I've never seen that before. So I was in shock too about that. And so it was cool because another thing I was overcoming during that time was even that judgment towards alcohol is
Mhm.
alcohol, drinking alcohol. Number two, the judgment on tattoos. She had tattoos. And then number three was, yeah, man, like what my expectations of a woman were, or of a wife material. Like, oh, this is just my buddy, man. We're just gonna hang out and watch sports. And so I had really like this image of what a wife was like based on my experiences, right? My mom wasn't like that, but it's interesting then when I got married and spent almost 14 years doing that. I guess maybe that's what shifted my whole mindset. I don't know. It's interesting, right?
Well, I don't know. I mean, at that point, I think really where you were at, and correct me if I'm wrong, but like going through the divorce and
Yep.
feeling all the pain and hurt, even the religious pain and hurt,
Yep.
and then, here in front of you is a girl who's got tattoos, a single mom, drinks beer, and for
Cusses little.
you, oh, yeah, I can cuss a little, maybe even a lot. But for you, it was even more attractive in that moment because of kind of what state you were in. Like
Oh, definitely.
I feel like you were in a little bit of a
I was looking, yeah, that's
rebellion.
right. I was looking for anything that was opposite of what I thought it was the right one. The one, the Christian girl.
So he thought that he was, kind of getting to experience this wild girl.
this partier, supposedly because she drank beer and liked sports. That's freaking funny. We've never really talked about this like this. This is fun. Oh my goodness. Timing. It was really a good timing for both of us in our lives.
Mhm.
And
And let me clarify, because the yeah, we talked about, the rebellious state,
mhm,
right?
mhm.
And the reality is if Carlos had come into my life with a whole bunch of religion,
Yeah,
we wouldn't have even hung out.
right.
I would
I
have been
would have hung
like,
out with her. She wouldn't have hung out with me.
I would have been like, sorry, bro. Like,
Yeah.
go hang out at the church.
Yeah, go
'Cause that's
back.
not where I live.
Go hang out with your choir girls.
Yeah.
Not that they're bad. I'm just saying that's like the stereotype, right? So it was interesting. The timing was perfect. We have to say that. Like I do agree that there are certain situations in your life, because everyone's always looking for the right one, the one, and I don't believe in that because there's nothing there's no free will in when you say, oh, God chose this woman for me,
Hmm.
and I didn't marry the right one the first time. No, that's a scapegoat. I truly believe it. The timing was good though, because I was ready, you were ready,
Yeah.
like, and we were ready to receive something totally different, right? I
Hmm.
was totally different.
Yeah.
Like I was preacher boy, if you want to call
Yeah.
You were a rebellious party girl, supposedly. I'm not saying that was true, but that's what I thought, and that's kind of what her impression of me. I mean, I didn't cuss, I didn't drink, I didn't chew, and I didn't go with the girls that do. That's what used to stay in Boy Scouts. So I was pretty straight laced. Let's just be real about it.
And, from my story, right, I had come as a teenager, I had come out from a very high control religion, right? The Mormon religion. And so I had no interest, none, in church, in organized religion whatsoever. Like, I had my own relationship with God, had to do with when I was surfing or in nature, and see me later with all that crap, because I
Yeah,
wasn't going to have it. And so, it kind of, the timing was perfect for him to be at that state, because what it did was it allowed us to come together and to develop a friendship,
that's right.
and to, eventually create a foundation from which we could both grow from.
Yeah. Yeah. This next question is really good because it kind of ties into things that we did. Common interests. What common interests or values did you discover that helped build your connection? You want to answer first?
I would say love.
Yeah.
I would say love. I was working with abused and neglected kids at the time. Really, I have a heart for people. I have a heart for people who are downtrodden, rejected, those kind of things. And, that's one of the things that, you know, we absolutely connected on, was his heart. Coming from the ministry mindset and world, doesn't matter. It's still the heart. The heart is to help people, to see people healed, right? Free,
Hmm.
to, his gift and his blessing was through worship, and to see
Hmm.
people, really discover themselves and their relationship with God through music and
Yeah.
worship. So love of people, I think, was a really giant connector for
Yeah.
us.
The children connection was huge.
The
Chantel
orphans.
loved children.
hmm
We both had a connection on the orphans. But even like when I think back when we first got together, even the music side of things, I was open and rebellious. So even like the music stuff, she changed my view of, because I was pretty much most of the time Christian music. Again, I still love Christian music. That didn't change. And gospel music, right? So she actually introduced me then to like reggae music and some really cool soulful stuff besides Boys to Men. And reggae was huge because I'd never been around anything like that. Here, there's you got these guys that are what do they call them, the
Rastas.
Rastas. And you go to these concerts and they're smoking weed. It's strong in there, and they are just spiritual, man. You can feel it. And I people will say, well, that's the wrong spirit. You can judge or think whatever you want. I was just super blessed and impressed. Their passion, their heart, the connection that Chantel and I had there and with some of the people, it was awesome. Like I really, really have, and I still have a love for reggae to this day. We've been to Jamaica even because of that love, both of us, and getting to learn about Mr.
Bob.
Bob Marley, thank you. I've got a picture of him over here. And he is definitely an amazing global changer and had huge impact through his music. And so I was definitely, that was when I
It's the
got my
love of
interest.
God,
Yeah.
right? The love of God.
Yeah.
And, it's a different culture, but it's still the love of God.
Yeah.
So,
So that was really cool because that was a huge connection for me. Her passion for music, maybe she didn't sing like I did. She can sing, but she didn't have like the background where I sang all the time.
mhm.
And but she could dance. That's what we
We
always say
always
coming
say that he's
together.
got the voice and I've got the rhythm.
I could follow real well when her body was moving. I was moving with it, dancing with her. And so that was a huge connection. So I'd say like music, and even that was part of that was even spirituality.
Mhm.
Um, and in her, you're right, love was a huge thing because like one of the things I noticed with her was her love for people too, and the love of pulling the best out of people. Her friends, like all of her friends, God says we shall know them by their fruit. And all of her friends, they didn't say, oh, she goes to church every Sunday and every Wednesday.
And
But
studies the
right.
Bible.
Again, it was like she loves so well.
Mhm.
She was there for me. The love that I knew of Papa God and the love that I knew of Yeshua, Jesus, that I read the Bible, like all of a sudden I'm seeing it in person in this woman in the fruit. And all of her friends are describing it like, man, she was there for me. She always would be there if I needed her. She loved so well. She comforted me in my hard times. I know I couldn't make through this hard time if she wasn't there. She was faithful. She was like her roommates would tell me, "Oh my gosh, it's best roommate I ever had." And so I'm like, "Dang, okay, wow, how is this possible?" She's not going to church every Sunday. I mean, I really thought that way back then. I was like, how can that be? I don't understand how this is, because my impression, my understanding back then was you had to be at church every Sunday, every Wednesday, every prayer meeting, every Bible study, everything. You had to be there. Like that was what made you a good person. That's what would make you have this fruit, is if you had all this church and religion, right? So that was my understanding during that time. So I was like really confused, to be honest, because I was like, all that I see in the Bible is described there is actually what she's living, but not doing the church thing. So it did confuse me. So that was a huge connection for me, though, that there
Mhm.
absolutely was proof of spirituality. And it was very cute. Like I have to share this moment, um, when one of the moments when I was like, hey, we're like in the living room. Will you pray with me? Can we pray together? And you looked at me and you're like,
Nope.
I was like, what?
So, again, talking about backgrounds, right? Coming from the Mormon religion, I didn't pray out loud. Like I didn't we didn't pray together as people.
That
Like
wasn't
we
normal.
prayed before our meal, and then when somebody was sick, we had one of like the elders would come and pray a blessing over you. Like it wasn't like this, Christian prayer. Like that wasn't, it was not what I did. And I was like, nope.
Yeah.
I mean, I pray now.
Well, yeah, that's even part of the story.
Yeah.
Because yeah. So then I'm trying to remember where the crossover happened. That's the part that's really
Well,
awesome. It
I
wasn't
will tell you later, but that's later on.
okay.
Yeah, that has nothing to do with that time.
Gotcha.
But so I think
No, I'm talking about not the religious or the prayer and the Christian crossover. I'm talking about the crossover where I don't know that I could define a moment where it was like, oh, all of a sudden we're boyfriend and girlfriend, or that we
no,
declared you did
well,
find a
it
moment.
wasn't a declaration, so to speak. It was
I'm just
it
gonna
was
kiss
kind of
her.
like it just happened.
Yeah.
It was like, I had that conversation with him on the beach, and then we just continued to hang out, and pretty soon he was kissing me, and I was like, "Whoa, bro. We gotta if you want to keep kissing me, we gotta change some things."
A little aggressive. And that's so funny because even that kind of took me back. I was like, no one has ever told me that. And now, since you know my past, my story, I had kissed lots of women over the years. I was like, wait, I thought every woman liked it that way. It's like all aggressive up in their mouth. And just like,
Yeah. So we had to make some adjustments.
that was awesome. I never had that happen to me before. So
But
that
he
was
was
even
willing to
powerful.
learn, right? He
That was
was like,
powerful though, that she just like spoke of truth right from the beginning. Like, wait, hold on there, partner. Slow it down. She was nice about it. Don't get me wrong. She wasn't like, yo, you're out of here. She was just saying, I need a little bit more smooth and gentle and calm, less aggressive.
so it just kind of naturally um happen. Again, having that conversation, that release of like, listen, let's work through your stuff, and we can hang out, we can be friends, those kind of things. And then it was like it just happened. It's
Yep.
the snowball effect, right? So the next question is family reactions.
Yeah. How was the family reaction?
It was so funny because my mom, while I was doing my real like deep healing as far as relationships go, she said to me, "So when you see your type, run the other way." And the funniest thing is I really think that's really powerful because Carlos was not my type, right? Again, I was, physically attracted to Black men. And I had this belief that you had to have this like physical attraction and chemistry that had to be there. And I think that's such a myth. And what I recognized um when we were building our friendship and things kind of just started again snowballing,
Yep.
what I recognized was how deeply I was plagued with like really just lust. Like that's all it is. It's
Yeah.
it's this mindset of lust and not actually like depth, right? So here I was developing this deep friendship relationship that also was turning into more. And I really like was faced with that. I was faced with that like in my mind, like in everything, I was like, okay, like, and I had felt this in my spirit, like I feel like I'm gonna marry this dude, but I'm not physically attracted to him. Like, when things started happening, I was like,
Mhm.
how do I get from here to here? And it literally came from the relationship. It came from the friendship. It came from the quite frankly, the hard times that we had in the beginning. When he was in a state of confusion, he was still, processing his divorce. He was still, you know, confused whether he wanted me or whether he wanted to go back to his
It's
previous
true.
wife. Like
It's true.
he was in this, and I was really like kind of just in a state of like whatever you decide
Yep.
is going to be good. Like you know what I mean? Like if you really want to choose this, then choose it, and it was a season of stretching. It was a season of, I would say, hardship even.
Well, and I think I have to say this, like looking back on it too, it's so crazy because we've never gone in such depth about this and like step by step. So you get to hear it for the first time as we talk about it. We'll just keep it raw and real. Is that, because there was so much drama and back and forth and like I was so confused because my previous wife had 4 kids, and then all of a sudden we have these grandkids, right? And I loved kids and I loved the grandkids, and so I'm going back and even seeing the grandchildren. And then my previous wife is is moving on, engaged, but yet not moving on. Still, yeah, stop. Lots of drama. You know how that stuff can go. It's crazy. Um, but the one thing is like that was constant was you during that time, and I realized because of all your training prior to us coming together, like you understood trauma, you understood the process of overcoming the trauma and the drama. And it was really interesting now that I look back because I'm like, holy smokes, how the heck were you able to handle that? Like it was like a superpower because rightly so, she shouldn't have handled it. She should have kicked me to the curb. I'm like, dude. And it was interesting too because even her mom's reaction was, well, she was living in her mom's garage at the time, and I would come, and I moved in the garage. Just to be real, like I'm not trying to sugarcoat our story. Like we started living together, and her mom was free about it. That's what I mean, so much freedom. But at the same time, I knew I needed to get this fixed. I knew there was a lot of things mixed up, And Chantel believed in me. And I'm telling you, like, I remember in that garage 24/7. Now, this would probably drive any normal person, so you're not quite normal, crazy. But I played audios 24/7 in that garage. Anytime I was in there. You remember that? Playing just all these audios of training and mental fixes and the life and death is in the power of the tongue, which was from Danny Johnson. There was one CD that I wore out. And it was CD back then, and played it in the little CD player. She had this little CD player in the garage, and I would just play that thing over and over because I'm like, I'm not getting this. Life and death in the power of tongue. It didn't make sense to me. All I knew was speaking death. All I knew was negativity and criticism. That was what I had been around, and how that was my neural passageways were always that, to complain and be negative. So I'm telling you, it was not easy for her. And so I'm constantly playing that. And then here's the other thing. Her mother was incredible. This is where Marlise comes in. Again, was my journey. What I did is that she did work on hypnotherapy, and working on the mind and helping me through trauma of my past, and trauma from my previous marriage, and all the drama and chaos that happened there, and trauma even from my childhood and things that I went through. And so it was super powerful. As a matter of fact, Chantal, I had access to Marlies, and I am that guy that's like, oh, if a little's good, a lot must be better. I'm a little bit, on the spectrum, probably that way. But seriously, so I was like, okay, well, you give me 2 or 3 sessions a day. And there was some, really good, like, self-improvement through that process. And if you know anything about hypnotism, you're being hypnotized every day, whether you like it or not. You are. It's really more scientific than you think. It's woo and all this voodoo or spiritual stuff. No, it's actually a lot more scientific than you realize. Go do your research. And so she would literally take me through this process of help me go back to my memories, and then help me to have a better understanding, to disconnect from those people and blaming those people and connect to God, my papa, my father, and to have a healthy connection through that. It's really, really awesome. The process she took me to several times, and several things, and abandonment issues that I had, and fear, and all these things that I was dealing with. And like Chantel says, such a broken man. And through this process, the healing began to happen through Chantel's expertise and Marlise's expertise. I started to become a healed man, and I'm going back and forth trying to figure out who the heck I am and what am I going to do here. Because again, I had been with my previous wife for almost 13 years at this
14
point.
years.
Almost 14 years. Yeah, that's right. And then we were going through this divorce. She didn't want to let go at first. And then she wouldn't let the divorce go through. Like, it was really quite a strange situation, even though she was engaged. It was really interesting. So as far as how her family responded, they embraced me and took me in. Now, my family, they weren't involved at all. That's where I'd gotten. I mean, this is what's so crazy about this. I had no connection with my family.
Yeah.
None of them. What had happened with my previous wife and I, Lee, is we became very codependent on each other, and we isolated. It was just she and I's world. So we hadn't isolated even from her parents and stuff. So I didn't have relationship with very many of my relatives at all. And so it's really interesting to look at that question and go, how did my family respond? There wasn't a response yet. They didn't really know much.
Until there was.
Yep. And I told a little bit of that in my story, but this is about during that time, that was the wisdom of Chantel, having me have restoration with my mom and our relationship, so that there could be that family connection, because that was super important to her. And she was all about it. She was living with her mom in the garage, right? And during that time too, another famous memory, because it's all in that garage, right, when we first started, was Hazel. I remember changing her, potty training her, and even because I was so blessed to be having the
I feel like
opportunity.
you hold on to the garage.
I do, because I remember so much, and it wasn't that long. I know it wasn't that long, but to me it was a lifetime, because I was processing so much.
Yeah.
like doing those sessions with your
But
mom,
it was,
listening to that training. We,
but when you were working with mom was also when she encouraged you to go back to work.
that's right. That's what I was going
And
to say. Yeah.
that's then when we got the condo
Yeah.
and just down the road and
Right.
moved in
Yeah.
there. And
But I'm
so,
saying, like, here's that moment in the garage too. Listening to all the audios, went to a Danny Johnson event, and then even Hazel called me Boo Boo. I remember that. That was like a thing. And so we started doing that. Hey, Boo Boo. Ah, Boo Boo. She wasn't talking much yet, but she was when I first met her. But that was one of the things she used to say.
yeah.
And so I became Boo Boo, and I love that.
And Mateo loved him. Like they connected right off the bat.
Yeah.
And that was also another important factor for me,
And rightly so. I longed for that. One thing that God will give you the desires of your heart. I truly wanted. I remember literally saying those words. Will you give me a second chance? And I was literal, like with children, with a wife, because I knew I had failed the first 14 years so bad as a husband and as a father. And I didn't have the skills, didn't have the understanding of what it took to be a good father and a good husband. I just longed for another chance. So it's like, okay, here it is. And I remember too with Mateo, because he's so athletic, y'all. Yeah, when he was little. So that would be around, he was 11, 12 years old. When we got together, it was 11.
10.
It was 10. Oh, yeah, okay. And so then I remember he always wanted to race me. And the old me would have been like, I'll let this kid beat me and squash him and stuff. And same thing, he always wanted to protect his mom and love his mama. And as you heard from my previous story, that I squashed that in the kids before and the oldest son. But this time I was like, do it, open her door. You're such a great, good young man, high-fiving him and knuckling him.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you take care of your mama. If I'm not here, I'm blessed that you take care of her. So we really, really had to start to create a really good bond through that process in those early years. And yeah, so then the condo.
In the condo. But that's what I mean. Like the garage was such a short-lived time. And then, it was in the condo where you were kind of where I was talking about, the hardship of like, here I'm still working 2 jobs.
Yep.
Dealing with the kids now, having you in the picture, and yet
And I wasn't working
either.
either.
You were well, yes,
I hadn't when we were living in the garage.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hadn't been then. That's when I was going back and forth. And then you're right. It was during one of those sessions, your mom, it was such a pivotal moment. She's like, didn't you used to like do work and be a consultant and like build business? This time I was like, because she was processing with me. I'm like, yeah. She's like, why don't you go back to work? Because I think I was just reffing at the time or something,
You were
doing some
and
refereeing and stuff. Yeah, and I was like, it's like, why don't you go back to work? It's like, okay, I could do that. Which I loved working. It was really weird. I'd gotten into that funk and that zone, so she helped pop me out of it. And then, of course, Chantel too, being like, yeah, believe me, let's do it. What do you want to do? And it wasn't long, man. It was really short time. We went from a condo. We got a condo.
Yeah. So again, that was like that healing time, and we were there for, I think we signed a 6-month lease.
Yeah.
And
I remember that.
And it was in the condo where things really shifted, right? That was sort of like really our stepping ground. That was where he finally got to a point where he was like, I choose you.
Yep.
Right. And so feeling that it was interesting because that's when I sent him to his mom. So when we were in the condo, that's when I sent him to his mom. I said, look, if we're going to really do this, then you got to go heal that. Right. So I sent him to his mom, and so fascinating because I had then received messages from a dude that I had dated that I really, really liked, you know, prior to him coming. Um, and like trying to reconnect with me, and man, it was I think that was while you were in Tennessee, and I was getting these messages, and I actually like I remember just being like so like, okay, so I've just dealt with all this shit from Chuck for the last, 4 or 5 months, and
Yeah.
then, and here it is, like we're at this place, and now I get these messages. What the heck, right? Like some kind of cruel joke. But I remember sitting there in that living room and really like just being like, okay, this is my decision point, right? This is my decision point
Right.
now. He had to make his decision.
Yeah.
Now I get to make mine. Am I going to, entertain this and, play this doubt game, or am I going to be all in? And so that's when I sent a message back to the guy. I said, listen, I've met somebody and I believe I'm going to marry him. And, that was it. And so that was, again, going back to even when that trip down to Mexico, like that release, like the decision point, right?
Yeah.
Release any kind of hope for that relationship, and I'm committed to this. I'm all in. He was visiting his mom. He had really he was proving to me his decision point, and that was mine.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I remember because I told this story, but when I went to my mom's, it was such a breakthrough for me. Like that was like the absolute like I am not turning back now. And I told my mom, I'm actually gonna go back and I'm gonna ask Chantel to marry me. A
mhm,
woman that would, do this and have the wisdom to send me to you. It's phenomenal. And I don't ever want to lose this woman. So I'm going to put a ring on it. And I'm going to marry this woman. I'm going to love those children like my own. And
mhm,
it was super cool to be able to tell my mom and her be the first to know. That was a really cool, special moment for me and my mother, and just reconnecting with her and dating her again, and
mhm,
my own mother. It was really cool. And so, yeah, then I came back. And we also, another way that we were really connected and some of the things that brought us that we had in common was actually enjoyed doing business.
mhm.
We were, she was open to being an entrepreneur, and we were actually doing some network marketing. That's the business we were in.
Health and
And
wellness company.
yeah. And so it was an event that I was going to be speaking at with some of the other leaders. And I said, okay, this is it. I came back from my mom's, and we were both going to that event. And so we're at this network marketing event. This was my plan to propose, coming back from seeing my mom. And again, I was met up with some of the leaders there, and the owners of that company, and had planned it all out, even asked them permission. And it was
Mhm.
interesting because
So
you had some family show right to that event
yeah,
that
because it
normally
was in
didn't.
Utah. Right, it was in Utah, the event was in Utah, and we, ended up staying on an air mattress in a friend's home there in town, and, he had left early because he was one of the leaders in the company, right? So he had left early with some of the other leaders, and I had stayed around to get ready, and when we got there, they started the event, and you're right, because we were in Utah, we did have some friendly family friends come. My mom was there, her friends came, which wasn't like out of the norm, right? We were in Utah. so so we're there for the event, and I knew that he had to, present, talk, speak, whatever. So he goes up, and he's starting his speech, and um it's humorous, it's funny, and then all of a sudden he calls me up, and music starts playing, and I thought, okay, whatever, like he sings, right? So that's also not abnormal. Carlos is known for, like, speaking and training and all of those things. So, I just thought, okay, this is fun. He's going to sing to me. So he brings me up in front of, whatever, 300 people. And he starts singing It's Your Love by Tim McGraw. And then he dropped to his knee. And I was like, oh my gosh.
And someone actually, we got a picture of that. Someone
Yeah,
caught that moment.
we actually had a video,
Yep,
and I don't know what
somewhere.
happened. It was not on a friendly platform.
And I remember this song when I chose it. I'd sang it for because in my previous life, singing professionally, I sang at weddings, and so it was very, very famous song to sing at weddings. And so it was cool because I always think of this amazing woman every time I sing it, especially the second verse that says, better than I was, more than I am. And all of this happened by the touch of your hand. And who I am now is who I wanted to be. You and me together, we're stronger than ever. I'm happy and free. Oh, it's a beautiful thing. Don't think I can keep it all in. Just gotta let you know what it is that won't let me go. It's your love. So, yeah, that verse means a lot to me because it literally was the life we were living that I didn't even know was possible. That love could truly bring the best out of you, and yeah, and it did really bring a shock right through me. So that's what I sang to her.
Yeah. So it was wild.
Did I
And
give you a candy ring?
no, it was one of those green funky rings from that they had. So the company was Live International, and their color was lime green, and so it was this lime green fake
Like plastic ring though, right?
flower thing.
Because I always for some reason I thought it was a candy ring. I
Mm-mm.
keep saying that, but it was a lime green. She would
Yeah.
remember it.
It was
But it was a
metal. It
toy
was like
ring.
like you know like costume jewelry.
Oh, okay.
It was like cheap costume jewelry,
So it
lime
wasn't even
green.
a real ring, guys. For all you guys out there, that's not what's important. Getting the perfect ring.
Hmm.
It's just the offering up of commitment in
Yeah.
front of the world.
Hmm.
I was hoping she'd say yes. By the way, we hadn't done any pre-talking about this either. There's a lot of people that do that. Like, oh, if I asked you to marry me, would you say yes? I was just like bold. I was like, okay, I'm just gonna do it. I mean, obviously, we've been living together, so
Yeah. There we go.
yeah,
We got engaged.
we did. We sure did. We sure did. She said yes.
Yeah. And so then we had moved into the big house.
That's right. We did that 6-month lease.
We did that 6 months lease, and oh my gosh, we were in a condo that, with a 2-year-old and a 10-year-old was not good to be on the second floor, right? You have that neighbor downstairs that's like banging on the ceiling, like, shut up.
Yeah.
One time she left a note on our door, and
Yeah.
anyway, she hated it's like she's 2 years old. What am I gonna do? Have her tiptoe around? Like, no.
But before we left the condo, I want to bring this up because this is important for our connection and our children. Mateo discovered rugby while we were living in that condo.
That's true. Yeah.
Because it was like we were doing Pop Warner football with him.
Yeah, we had met some friends. We had him in football, but we had met some friends there that lived in the condo whose sons sandwiched Mateo in age, and he was a coach, and he had actually started a rugby club there in Oceanside.
And I'll be honest, I was a 3 Letterman sport guy, football, basketball, baseball. No clue, no experience to rugby. I don't even know if I'd ever even heard of it.
Yeah.
So we were both like, huh?
So he invited him out to practice, and he loved it. He really loved it. And so, then threw him into a tournament, and he was 12 years old. Was he 12? Yeah.
No, I don't think he was 12 by
he
this
was
time.
10 at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
10 or 11.
he played the 12s, the 14s, and the 16s at 10 years old. And I was like, is that legal? because he's playing with these big Samoan kids, and
Right.
so that was pretty wild. But yeah, so then we moved into the big house because
Yep.
we needed to. But that was an interesting experience too, because Carlos hadn't even looked at the house. I found the house and he was like, "Okay, I trust you." I'm
Yep.
like, "What?" Okay. So I rented the house and
That
we
was
moved
actually a
in.
really big deal for us. Um, yeah, it was because that was a big deal. She'd never actually had a house, had you?
No.
Yeah, you'd rented with friends.
Mhm.
And that felt really good for me because I had started um, a business there, doing pool
Const-
installation and construction and developing that company. And so it was really interesting because yeah, we did well very quickly.
Mm.
Um, and yeah, the big house was a big like commitment. It really
Love,
was.
I love that house.
Yeah, it was a two-story house, four
Just in the other
bedroom.
neighborhood from where mom and dad lived.
Hmm.
So we were still kind of right in the same area, and it
Yeah,
was
at the time
awesome.
we called it the big house because we were both like, "This is a big house."
Yeah.
We still weren't married.
Hmm.
Just saying, just to give you the timeline.
Yeah. So that's when we because we were in the business, the network marketing business as well. Our leadership then um transitioned to another company,
Yep,
and then we were invited to a Danny Johnson event.
that's right. So
So
in that world, as you probably know, when you're a leader in network marketing, if you've ever been around it, sometimes you get promoted to new companies and you go see new companies and the leadership all go and take their team
yeah,
with them. It's that
so
world.
that happened.
Yep.
And so we went to or Carlos went to a Danny Johnson
Yep.
event. And man, I'll never forget when he came back from that. He was like, "Okay, so we gotta, eat out of our pantry for a year and all this stuff." And I was like, "Hold up. You need to stop right there. You are not gonna walk in here and tell me to change all of my the way I operate." First of all, I was a single mom for so long, so my identity was very much wrapped up in like all the food in my refrigerator. So this whole war on debt thing just kind of, you know.
Well, go ahead. Were you gonna finish something about that?
Well, and I said to him, I said, "Listen, you know, I'm open. I will go, but it's not going to come from you."
Yeah.
What else were you going to
Well,
say?
well, I just want to backtrack a little bit at that first event I went to. If, by the way, Danny Johnson, Hans Johnson, Danny is a female. She's a world-renowned speaker and trainer. She's retired now, but at the time it was 2011, and I attended my first steps to success with Danny Johnson. It was actually, I think, the same year or year before Secret Millionaire came out.
Same year.
Same year,
Hmm.
okay, where
It had
Secret
just come out.
Millionaire and Danny Johnson was actually the premiere, is that what it's called,
Hmm.
premiere show for that
Hmm.
Secret Millionaire. You can go watch it. She's been on The View, she's been on Oprah. Very, very, very incredible woman, believer and all about success training. So anyways, I go to this event because she was really well known for helping people in their businesses, and she had come from the network marketing world and helped train up a lot of people and built a lot of wealth through network marketing. So we go there, of course, as a team, and I went without Chantel the first time. And so I'm on the front row, of course, Mr. Overachiever. And this is why I want to tell us, because then Danny, has this little part in her event where she's like, "I need a volunteer." Bro, I'm on the front row. You don't have to tell me twice. I didn't even raise my hand. I ran up on the stage. So it was pretty cool because it's interesting. Now, a little bit side story too was like my whole identity thing was being developed from this incredible woman, my wife, and she had already started planting seeds, helping me to like see that I was worthy and valuable man of God, and that that I needed to embrace my heritage, my Mexican heritage. And so so she had started to encourage me to go by Carlos because in high school it was my born name, Carlos Ramon Campos the second, and literally named after my dad, which he also had another middle name, Martin. So Carlos Ramon Martin Campos the second. So, anyways, if you've been around me enough, I like to joke and be crazy and wild. So I'm on stage with this powerful woman. I'd never met her before. I was super like blessed to get it, the opportunity. So I'm on there, and she's doing this whole grocery store thing about forming and communication and asking questions. And so, I'm on stage with her and she's going to practice with me or show me, demonstrate with me. Like we're in the grocery store and we're talking and she's asking me questions and stuff. And she asked me my name and she asked me how many children I had. And what was interesting was, again, now I was, Chantel had 2 children. My previous wife had 4 children. So I was like, and I paused and I was like, 6. I have 6 children. And she's like, what? Danny Johnson was. I'm on stage, in front of 1,000 people or so. And she's like, what did you say your name was? And I was like, because when I got up there, I said my name, hi, I'm Chuck Campos. And, she's like, okay, nice to meet you. And then we started the role playing. And so when she goes, what? How many kids do you have? 6? And I was like, yeah. She go, what did you say your name was? And so for fun, I was like, because, the stigmatism, Mexicans have lots of children. So I was like, Carlos Ramon Martin Campos II. And everyone in the room just started laughing. And I'm like, yeah. Anyways, attention hog, right? For sure. And especially then, part of my identity back then. So, anyways, that's what I was saying. So, like, I'm on the stage with this woman. So then she trains on personality stuff, gems, and then she trains on war on debt and how important it is, to not be a slave to debt. And it was like, I was like, oh man, I'm all in. I bought content. I
Meanwhile,
bought our tickets for our next event for us.
I'm back at the house watching the bank account go. What is he doing?
Yeah, it was real. It was real because like the big house was a big bite of finances. So, anyways,
Yeah.
I come back from the event and she's right. I did. I was like, we're eating out of our pantry. We're not buying any more food.
Listen, when you grow up Mormon, you have food supply for a year. You want me to eat out of my pantry for a year? No, that's my food supply.
Yeah. It was interesting. We're cutting up credit cards. We didn't have credit cards, so it didn't matter at that time.
So, that was an interesting time for us.
Yep.
Because there was definitely some things that we had to deal with. One, we had gone to another event, another network marketing event, and
Yep.
you had a team in Texas, and so you had gone to Texas and then you had met us there. And I had driven from California with my mom, my sister, and a friend from high school,
That's
guy
right.
From high school.
Yeah, that's right.
Right?
You remember this well.
Yeah.
I'm glad you're telling this story.
So we drove up to the event, you met us there. And so we were all there. And then what happened was my mom and Michelle ended up staying in Utah. And then Justin and I drove back to California. And so this was an interesting, when we talk about, our past and habits and behaviors and, mindset, right? Yeah. It was interesting because you had to go back to Texas and then
right. Had to drive them because I was driving them all
back. Yeah,
we
you were driving a
van.
Right.
A bunch of people came, yeah.
So anyways, he was going to be going back to Texas and I was going back to California, driving from Utah to California with Justin, who I went to high school with. And so all of a sudden, he started acting really weird. And I was like, whoa, okay. Hadn't seen this yet.
Yeah, it was a monumental moment for sure. I was definitely fearful, no doubt.
I hadn't seen this jealousy raise its ugly head yet in our relationship, but it sure came up.
Oh yeah.
And I remember we were in the hotel, like we were getting breakfast and we were going to head out shortly after that. And he was just, oh my gosh, just a
Triggered.
mess.
Yeah,
Triggered,
for sure.
jealous. Bleh.
Mad that she was doing this. I can't believe you do that. Because again, I thought it was
Yeah.
not the right thing.
And so listen, this is where it's like we had already decided, right, that we were going to do something different. We had
Absolutely.
already come together and been like, okay, we don't want what we had in the past.
That's right.
Right? I certainly did not want a jealous man.
No.
I had been there, done that. No, thank you. Not willing to go down that road.
Yep.
So when this came up and it was like right there in my face, I was like, listen, you need to handle your shit. I will not do this. You make a decision right now. If that's the life you want, you can go be with somebody else. It's not me. I'm not the one. We can't do this. And what did that do for you?
Oh, definitely. That was a start of me understanding what it means to trust
Mm-hmm.
and to believe, and that trust is given, not earned. You weren't going to earn my trust and not ride with him because he was a guy and an old friend and one of your best friends and good friends. It's like, I'm not going to not ride with him because of your insecurities.
Yeah.
So she didn't feed my insecurities and feed my fears, right? So many times that's what people do, but she would refuse to. She was like, I'm not doing this. So get over it. Like, this is how it's going to be. And it was almost like she demanded trust in a way, because it's like, this is how it's going to be, whether you like it or not. But the beautiful thing is that she never, ever, she would not, there was not an ounce of hypocritical in her, meaning like she wasn't going to tell me to do that and then turn around and I can't talk to a woman or hang out with a woman
Or drive with a woman.
Yeah, or drive with a woman or go on trips with a woman or do business and have a friend or a partner that's a woman. Like, that was never ever a case. Never ever came up. So it was like really cool to know that too. So she taught me in that moment, like it was a monumental one. I had to make a decision. I was like, wow, you're right. Like, you're absolutely right. And we talk about how we train people how to treat us. Like, in that moment, she's like, this is these are one of the deal breakers. Like, I'm not going to do this lifestyle. I've been down that road. She knew she'd been down that road with other relationships. And I was super grateful because we had made the decision that we were going to have a different type of relationship and a different kind of trust and love for each other.
Yeah.
That I wasn't familiar with, to be honest with you. I didn't know what it meant to trust in that at that level.
Mm-hmm.
and love at that level. That's
Yeah.
what it comes down to. So it's really, really cool. I'm super grateful for that, because that was kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, then, that year, I would say that first year that we were together, right? We were engaged.
Mhm.
And then so you had gone to the first Danny Johnson event.
Yep.
Then we went together.
That's right. We had set that time to go back, and you remember,
Yeah.
because that was your first event.
Yeah. It was my first event. Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Yep.
And
So how was that for you?
it was really cool because
You didn't run up on stage though, right?
I want nothing to do with the stage. Nothing. So Pittsburgh's hotel, the hotel we stayed at was attached to the airport, and that's important because the event, we were engaged, and actually we had just been dealing with like you finalizing the divorce. Yep. Right?
That's right.
Because you had gone to Texas.
Yep.
And met me there. But you met me there? I think you met me there at that event. I think you had flown into Lubbock and then came to Pittsburgh and met me there.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure that
probably.
like,
yeah, I think so. I had to go to a hearing. I think that's right. No, you are absolutely right. This is crazy. She's right. This is crazy when you redo your timelines and think about how everything went and how everything got into the flow and came together. Because it's true. I did.
Or was that the first event that you went to?
No, no, it was this one because I remember thinking now there is a true freedom that we could actually get married now.
It
Like,
was Dynasty when we.
so I had gone, there'd been a couple hearings, let's just put it that way.
Mhm.
And no show by my previous. So then they postponed one of them. And finally, I told the judge, and the judge and I had an attorney, and the judge is like, yeah, we're just going to finalize it. We're not going to keep wasting the court's time, and definitely not wasting my time, this judge. So it's like, bam, it's finalized. Divorce finalized, because it was just getting pushed back, pushed back, pushed back. And so it was finalized. So now we went to your first event, and that was when she talked about honor.
I thought it was Dynasty when we talked about honor. Anyways,
Honor.
doesn't matter. The event was a great event. We learned so much, right? We both sponged for personal growth and development.
Yep.
And because we knew that I mean, we were planning a wedding, right? We were planning for September. We were planning, I was looking at budgets. I had found a dress, like all of these different things. And um we were obviously waiting for the finalization. So that had taken place, right? So, but the event, somehow, Danny has a way of just, whatever she's talking about, you feel like she's talking directly to you, even though she's got a room full of like 700 people, right? Um, so we felt it was about honor. And, neither one of us had felt pressure to be married. I kind of had already just lived a life of, I didn't feel the pressure to be married before I lived with somebody, because I wasn't religious, right? I didn't have that religious connotation or belief system mindset. And Carlos was in rebellion. We talked about that, right? so so we were living together. So at this event, Danny was talking a lot about honor and all of the ways of honor, right? And what that looks like, what it feels like. And it felt, both individually, it felt like she was talking directly to us.
Yeah. And she even said about marriage. She
Mhm.
definitely mentioned that it's honoring to your wife and to God and those children to be married.
Mhm.
You're probably not married right now, living together potentially, because she did have a spiritual equipping night where she would
Mhm.
address some spiritual things and would address even
So
your connection to God and all that. It was really awesome.
yeah, so on the when the event was done and we're walking through the hotel like tunnel to the airport, because it's attached, right? Both of us kind of like there was this conviction, right?
Yeah,
And
for sure.
I don't know if it was you who said something first, but one of us said, "Hey, there's something that I really need to talk about." Me too, right?
Yeah, one of
We
us said
both
it
had
first.
this kind of like fire burning inside of us, like,
Yeah.
oh, okay. And so, we were feeling that. And, as far as marriage goes, and now it wasn't about religion, right? It was about honor. And so I think that's really what resonated so
Yep.
deeply within us.
100%.
And so
Because I mean, by biblical standards, we were already married.
yeah,
Okay, let's be real. Like
right.
that's how they consummated a marriage and
We were
official
committed.
made it a marriage official was you sleep together, you're intimate together.
Right.
And so we were living together. We had done that. But it was really important for us, I think, for me at least, that experience was coming back and like, matter of fact, I said I don't even want to sleep together. I want to apologize to our kids for not honoring you. I want to apologize for not honoring them and you and setting a good example. It was like in that moment, that was like the first time we were really, really purposeful in saying, hey, we want to set an example here and
Mhm.
set the record straight with our kids, even though they were so young. Like Mateo was 11 at the time.
Mhm.
Hazel would have been like three,
Two and a half,
two
three,
and a half,
two
three.
and a half. Because
Okay.
yeah, so at the same time, the philanthropic organization attached to DannyJohnson.com at the time is King's Ransom Foundation. And they had, at the event, they had talked about this project, this children's home in
Yeah.
Belize, and that there was a trip of volunteers going down to help facilitate the building of this new orphanage.
Yeah.
They had one that they were supporting, and it was in desperate need of a new building. And so they had the property, all of those things. And so that, of course, started stirring too. So we come back from the event with this conviction, and I get sick, like really sick. And I just remember being on the couch and I'm reading the book Spiritual Equipping, and
By Danny Johnson.
by Danny Johnson. And so, obviously, again, going back to where we were at and how we were coming together in our foundation, our spiritual life, our love for God, and you know what I mean? And Spiritual Equipping was a really profound book for me to kind of reignite and to get in tune with, biblical teaching.
Yeah.
And so I was sick, I was on the couch, I was eating it up and having all this kind of spiritual stirring, if you will. And I remember just having this like overwhelming feeling of like, why are we planning a wedding? Like, I have 2 kids, we have a house full of shit. He's been married already. You know what I mean? Like, why do we need to spend the money on a wedding? Like we could just go get married and go to Belize. Like, we could be a part of that. And like I just remember like having this stirring and just like crying and blah, like all this stuff. And so, again, he was doing construction stuff at the time, and I sent him a message.
Yeah. And I had my earbuds in, actually, and they were like text to talk. So I'm talking to a customer and about a project they wanted us to work on for them. And in my ear, I'm hearing this voice say, text message from Chantel. And it says, I'm just feeling like we're supposed to forsake all this money in this wedding, spending all this money on this wedding, and go spend that money to go build an orphanage with our kids in Belize. And I'm just like, what? No way. Because my heart was to do what she wanted, because she'd never had a wedding before, right? And so I was just like, oh my gosh, who is this woman that I'm marrying? How does this happen? Because I have a heart and passion for the children, the orphans, later the widows. But the point was, is like, that was my heart to serve and give. And so now she's confirming why I love her so much and why we're getting married, and our compassion that we had now is really becoming real. And so it was super awesome. Like, I literally had to step away from that customer, and I'm wiping away tears from my eyes. I'm like, yeah, please give me a minute. Sorry, I have to explain. But I was in tears about it, because I was just like blown away, because she had been like, just a day or two before that, she had been trying on dresses and stuff, and looking at venues, and we were thinking, it's gonna be about $10,000 minimum just for the cheapest venue out there.
I found my dress. Like, I found a gorgeous dress I was really excited about, but I couldn't put the money down. Like, and I didn't know why. It wasn't that we didn't have the money. I didn't feel it. Like, that was a beautiful dress.
It was. Well, so then we decided not to have this big ceremonial wedding.
Yeah. So we
But actually, before we do that, we went to the Justice of the Peace and actually got married.
Yeah.
So remember, I said we made a decision we weren't going to sleep together anymore. I stayed on the couch, and then I think it was a couple weeks after that event, or was it a week?
It was less than 2 weeks. It was less. It was like a week and a half.
I called the judge right away. I'm like, dude, I am abstaining. No, I'm kidding. But that was real. Like, we wanted to have this. I'm speaking for me. Self-control. She's hot. Still is. Was then. Still is. And so I was like, when's your next appointment we can get in there to get married? Because it was definitely, we wanted to do it. And like I said, we talked to the kids about it. Hazel was too young to really understand. But we said we want to be a good example. And I even apologized to Chantel for not honoring her as a woman and true and being and honoring her to that commitment and the bride. Because a lot of people are like, it's just a piece of paper. I'm telling you, it's a covenant. And there's a document. Like the Bible is a document, y'all. It's a covenant in the Bible. The covenant with God is that paper. So there's something very special about that.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, I'm very passionate about that paper, because then it creates that identity and connection and solidifies the fact that I truly am committed to this woman. And so, yeah, when you sleep together, I do believe you should be committed. Hear me. Like, I changed a lot of my views. And so, but that piece of paper shows that you're committed as well. And she's willing to take your name on, and like it's legal and binding. Like, that's super powerful as a covenant. So we went to the justice of the peace. Mama Marlise and Phil, Daddy Phil, came with us, and we're witnesses.
Yeah.
Was that it? Didn't Michelle go?
No.
Okay. See, I didn't think so, but so the four of us, the kids didn't even go.
No.
And then we didn't tell anybody.
No, we didn't tell anybody.
Because we were a little embarrassed. Let's just be real. Meaning we were embarrassed. My mom knew we were living together, but we were embarrassed because we had this date set, and we're like, they're expecting this wedding, but we're already married. Do we tell them we're actually already married now?
Will they still come?
Will they still come? And are they gonna be mad at us? I was still a people pleaser. It was more me than Chantel, for sure. And I'm like, oh, I don't want people to be mad at me. And there was a lot of relatives planning to come. It was cool.
Really.
Like,
I mean, that was what it was. So,
and then at this point, now back to that, where you had made that decision, then we were like, oh, let's still do it. Still do some sort of.
Yeah, so we did the save the date. We hadn't actually sent out an invitation. It was more of like a save the date type of deal. And so then we were able to just, invite our families and to come celebrate with us. We just want to have a party, a backyard, potluck celebration. Yes. And so we did. We had that. Wait, we went to Belize first?
No, oh yeah, did we? I don't know. No, I think we were married. We went to Belize.
No,
well, I know we were
quick.
married, but
no, it was quick after that event and that's why the timing was so
important. You're right. You're actually right, because I remember at our wedding. So what we did at the wedding or at the ceremony.
Yeah, but so we had made the decision to go to Belize, and so we had let the family know that this was our decision, and that
gonna forsake the big wedding, spend the money on going to Belize.
But please come, have a celebration. Yes. And so it was really beautiful.
Reception type thing.
Carlos's Aunt Sally had as a gift blessed us with miles. Yeah. And it just so happened that those miles were first class. So the kids, I think it was the kids' first flight ever. Yep.
We're flying first class. It was pretty cool.
First class to Belize.
Serve and build the orphanage in Belize.
And so we had a beautiful opportunity to do that. We built the walls of the King's Children's Home.
Man, what a great memory, great connection. Awesome opportunity there.
Mateo's 11 years old, throwing brick, in a chain gang of volunteers in the rain, in the mud.
We got to really connect with Jen and Marty Ratchford then. And that was before they were married.
That's right. That was before they were married. Yeah.
And that was super amazing. Just a lot of the people from the old school Danny Johnson community that we kind of grew up with, if you would, because so that was cool, because we met a lot of them, really connected with them at that orphanage and working for that orphanage. I remember even watching Chantel doing old school cement mixing, where it's all sitting in the dirt. She's just turning it by hand with the flathead shovel, and everyone's walking around it, turning it. And she was
and little Hazel's bringing water bottles to everybody,
water. Then it started raining at one point, and we were all soaking wet, just
Oh,
soaking
it
wet.
rained a lot, actually.
And I think I think Mateo got sick because he drank the water.
Oh, yeah.
Remember that? I think brushing his teeth, he swallowed or something. He had to run so bad, was thrown up,
Yeah.
poor guy. And we did. We stayed there on the where the construction was. They had this little
Volunteer.
volunteer hut essentially, and it was an amazing experience. And that was this is a cool story because remember I went hunting with them
Mhm.
because I'm crazy like that. Like we were doing a lot of the work and got to know the
The
I guess
locals.
the locals or the natives of Belize,
Mhm.
and man, because a lot of people that were helping build the orphanage were from Belize, and they were just I got to learn, they didn't have meat. Like this was all kind of a new experience for me being in a third world country like that. And they wouldn't go shopping. Meat was too expensive. They'd buy their staples and things. But a very poor country, and they were just telling me how they don't go buy their meat. They hunt for their meat. And I'm like, you hunt for meat, okay? And they're like, yeah, we go hunting at night. And I'm like, what? That's legal? Where I come from in the States, that's illegal to hunt tonight. They're like, oh no, it's totally legal here. And matter of fact, we're going to hunt tomorrow night. I was like, I want to go. I want to go with you guys.
Yeah, I remember all of the women back at the volunteer shack were like, you're letting him go? Like, yes. It's a fun adventure.
Yeah.
But the reality is, you're out in the
It
bush
was kind of
with
scary.
locals that you
And it's
don't
a
really
jungle in
know,
Belize where we
and you're
were.
the only one without a gun.
Yeah, that was funny. Like about halfway, these guys all have rifles and everything, and they're telling stories about people getting murdered out in the jungle. I'm like, about halfway through this walk, we're walking several miles, and I'm like, I was a little quite a bit heavier then. And I was like, oh my God, I'm going to die out here. It's hot and humid. And at one point, I am not kidding you, this huge, probably a python snake goes across the pathway we were walking, and it's nighttime. And we're in the jungle, we're in the bush, y'all. And I was like, but they're out here, so I'm sure I'm going to be okay. But then halfway through, I was like, I'm the only one that doesn't have a gun. What am I thinking? They did let me shoot it like a pig or something. I missed totally, and we didn't get a deer that night. That was the plan, was to get a deer, and I had never done that either, eating wild deer like in the bush like that. And so it was cool. A couple days later they did go hunting again and got a deer, and they let me try it out. They brought me some one of those days we were working. The guys were like, "Hey, we brought you some." I was like, "Oh my gosh, thanks," and got to try it. So that was our experience in Belize, and it was really cool to even start our marriage and our connection like in that we forsook this big wedding celebration, spending tens of thousands of dollars, and instead invested in our start as a honeymoon. Essentially, our honeymoon was
Yeah.
in Belize, um, building an orphanage. And then we came back and we had the reception of sort, right? Family all came and we did the
Yep.
park thing.
I had a friend's band play,
Yeah,
and again, we had a house full of stuff, so we just took donations for the orphanage.
that's right. Yeah, that was amazing too. That was a cool thing. Like, hey, because people want to give gifts and stuff, and we're like, hey, would you just donate? Would you be willing to donate? We've made it a target. We want to give $1,000 to the orphanage in Belize to keep that going, and we did. It was really cool. We were able to do that with the monies from our reception from the wedding. We donated it to the orphanage, and that was a crazy awesome experience. We still did some vows and stuff and had witnesses, and we didn't necessarily have someone say I pronounce you man and wife because we were already man and wife, but we did our vows. We had music, we had fun, and the other thing that was really cool, creative idea, is we just did a potluck, man. Everyone bought food to share, and people were super generous with that, and so it literally cost us zero. And so it was fun because we did it in the public park, and
yeah, we did it in the park behind our house, and just our families got to hang out and get to know each other. So that was cool.
Yeah, it was.
So we're married. We've done all that. And the other thing, that first year, we're still in the first year, y'all.
It's gonna be a long
Yeah.
story bringing it up to date because it's been over 14 years now. We're
Wow.
still in the first year.
It is long. So that first year, the other thing that I do want to mention is the identity crisis
Mm,
that I went through. Um,
that's right.
because I had been working since I was 15 years old, you know, uh, and not just working, hustling, right? I had,
Yeah.
you know, I really, that was my identity, that I worked. I had a very good work ethic. I had to. Back then it's not really, yeah, you don't have a choice, especially when you're single mom. And but my greatest desire was to be home, to be a mom to my kids. I had so much help from others taking care of my kids while I took care of everyone else's kids, right? At the children's shelter. And like, man, like when can I just take care of my own kids?
Yeah.
That was something that I wanted so badly. And so Carlos made it happen. And then I was like, oh crap, who the F am I? Like literally, like, who am I?
Yep.
And that was a hard season. I remember like just this battle, this mental battle of number one, like, am I worthy of this life? Number two, what do I do with my time?
Yep.
Right?
That's right.
Because when you're a hustler, you make every second count. And
You maximize every resource you got.
yeah.
She had done that
So
for
I
years.
had I had a season like I had to actually quit drinking any kind of alcohol. Like it was a whole thing that I had to, kind of reevaluate, like, who am I? What am I
Yep.
doing here? What is my purpose? You
That's
know?
right. That's really what it came down to.
Yeah.
Is like, what does it mean to be a stay-at-home mom? What does it mean to have a husband and be a wife? Like, there's
Hmm.
really, really a lot. And this is actually when we were in the big house, is where we started what is now known as Epic 30.
Yeah.
Because this was part of even like, we've got to figure out something. We've got to figure out some kind of flow here and something that keeps us focused because we both were super duper committed to personal growth and development.
Hmm.
We were super committed to having an epic marriage. We were not going to settle for anything less. But to be honest with you, all of our experiences around us, all the family members, all the people we had met just had not the most epic marriages, whether it's divorces or separations or affairs. I mean, the drama, right? And so we were destined to have drama. I mean, with two other daddies in the picture potentially, and yeah, my background and
Yeah.
my previous wife and previous kids from that relationship, and it's like, wow, this is a lot. There's a lot of blending here and a lot of opportunity for drama. So
Hmm.
we both recognized that we had to do something that would make a difference. And
Hmm.
we didn't know it's so interesting when you look back on these things and you go like, wow, that was super profound what we created. But at the time, we didn't know actually. We just figured we got to do something. And we were doing so much reading, so much training. As a matter of fact, during that season too, we went to all the Danny Johnson events. I remember she always challenged people, give me a year of your life. We both said, okay, let's do it. We
10
did.
years later.
Yeah. And so as a couple, though, we went to that's what was different too. We were committed to this and learning everything we could and then apply it to our marriage and to our business and our finances.
Well, so the thing that we started as far as Epic 30, right? Like, as you had transitioned out of your previous marriage and then into this relationship,
Mhm.
you were given um, a tool
Yep.
to use to
Mhm.
help you through that time.
Yep.
And that was journaling, right? That
That's
was
right.
these letters to Papa,
Hmm.
these letters to God.
That's right.
And I remember literally the dude came to California with a suitcase that had oversized clothing and a plastic accordion file with sheet music
Yep. That was my priority back then.
and then these letters,
Letters to Papa.
these letters to Papa. That's what he came with.
Right. And I was holding on to those letters, which, we talked about that. But the crazy thing was, I was truly holding on to them. And then I started reading through them. I was like, ooh, those are
Ooh.
pretty dark. Why did I hold on to this stuff? Let's get rid of them. Let's burn them. Let's throw
But
them
it was a
away.
tool,
Yeah.
right? It was a
Yeah.
tool that it was a therapist.
Yeah. It was actually in my previous marriage, we had gone to an incredible, profound therapist and counselor. And she was actually the owner. It's a pretty well-known she was the owner, and I got the opportunity to actually work with the owner, to the founder, I should say. There we go. And directly, Lee and I. And so we were trying to work it out. And she gave this process of journaling, writing a letter to Papa, and then random Bible search. Now it's digital. We use digital, but before it would be just letting the Bible open, and how that connection to the Father and how he wanted to speak to all of us and really help us in our identity. And so I had adopted that, and I was really like, wow, it did rock my world. And I kept doing it, and I never stopped. And I started introducing it to others because it affected my life so much. Um, Lee didn't necessarily do it. If you'd stop doing it, that was part of the challenge at the end. We were just on different, you know, roads.
Trajectories.
There you go. Thank you. And so, anyways, so then now I had introduced it to Chantel. And so we're like, well, this is a good thing. We should probably make it consistent. There's such power and connection to the Father.
Yeah, and it was interesting because we had, again, on our spiritual journey, right, we're really trying to identify sort of our family values,
Yeah,
like our moral code,
that's
if you
right.
will. And, through First Steps to Success and creating a dynasty and, all of the things that we were pursuing both through personal growth and development and spiritually, we, developed what is now the Epic 30 because we wanted something practical that we as a family could use at home to integrate our 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 family,
Yeah,
integrate our growth and our transformation, and to be able to be intentional
that's right.
every single day. And so that's kind of
Yeah.
what we created.
And
And
that was kind of the core of it and starting of it. And
a
during
couple
this,
of our different trainings have come out of it, not just
yes.
Epic 30. Like so, our time in the morning as a family looked like pretty intensive because it was the development, it was the natural development of all of these practical applications, all of these tools that we now give to others were created. And at the time we had this tiny little 4-seater kitchen table. That was our kitchen table.
Yep.
I mean, we had like the bar,
Mhm.
but it was a horse. We literally, and Hazel was in a high chair, or you know what I mean. But it's and she's 2, and she's just drawing. So we had the kids, and writing, journaling, writing their letter to Papa, getting a letter back, and Hazel's literally scribbling, drawing pictures.
Yep. Yeah, it was cool to start that there and to see this process begin.
Yeah.
And actually the involvement of the GWs came later. But interesting thing is right from the beginning of us coming together and connecting and doing this process, and then we had someone come live with us because she had aged out of where Chantel worked. And Chantel had such a connection with her, Karenisha, beautiful Karenisha, and she needed a place to stay and transitioning out of the home. And so it was really powerful to get that opportunity to allow her to come and stay with us during that time in the big house.
Well, we had a couple of different people.
Yeah, that's one of them though, where we started that right from the beginning of our marriage, is what I'm saying. Like we already have someone living with us.
The first one was my niece.
Yep.
who had just come out of a very unhealthy
Oh, that's
relationship.
right. Yeah, you're
So
right.
she came, and
Yep.
then she got to like be infused with, our marriage, our relationship. Then she moved on, she moved to Utah, and then, there was Karanisha, then there was also Randy,
Yes. And
and
that's
then
what I was going to
Carlos.
tell. Yep, that's where this story gets very interesting because, we talk about, we're going to have to do multiple parts on this, I think. Um,
Oh, really?
I think so, because it's 14 years. Um, is that this is where even that whole thing about the jealousy was super profound, where
Mm,
it kind of came back, where I had gone to an event
right.
because we were building a traditional business, brick and mortar business, and developing that. Um, and also we were still doing some of the network marketing stuff. And I had met Brandy. Gosh, I can't even think of her last name now, or original.
Kowal.
Cool. Thank you. That's so funny. All I know is Del Rio now. So
Yeah.
Brandy was like the life of the party. Was a vibrant gal,
Yeah.
a leader as
So
well.
we had heard about Brandy through a couple of the leaders in the company. And so we had met her at an event in Utah
Yeah,
together
yeah.
while we were there.
And she was really connected with some of the leaders that I had done some singing with
Right.
at some of the events. And so then,
So Brandy's story is she had gotten out of rehab. Okay. So she was in Utah for a rehab. It was a 30-day drug and alcohol rehab. She was at an equestrian facility, really posh. And then she went to live with this particular leader at the time. And so it was a couple of months after that, after we had initially met her, that she ended up at an event. It was in Arizona, I think you went.
yeah, I think so. Yep.
Yeah. So Carlos had gone to an event in Arizona and, obviously see the whole crew and all of that. And I get this call.
Yeah, she was really, really struggling coming out of this rehab place and fears of um relapsing and just feeling kind of depressed, and I was like, I need to take you to my wife. Seriously, like I saw what Chantel had done for me and helping me still, right? Because we're into this relationship now, we're married now, and even Marlise, I was like, I know just the place for you.
So I get this call and he's like, "Hey babe, you remember Brandy? I really feel strongly that she needs to come home with me and like spend some time in our home,
Live with us for a
live
little
with us
bit.
for a little bit." I'm like, wow, okay, you know, I don't remember feeling one way or the other. I just
No, I was
felt
like, okay,
like,
I'm bringing her home with me then. Let's go. Pack your bags, Brandy.
I felt like my heart of compassion and recognizing like, his discernment and his gift of discernment and being able to see like, hey, her light is like real dim.
Yeah.
And that was his words, like her light, because she's again boisterous, big personality, and he said the light's going out,
Yep.
and she needs some support. And so yeah, he brought her home.
Now,
And
at the same time,
well,
our neighbor,
it wasn't at the same time.
pretty close to the same time.
Yeah, let's go
Right?
there
Yeah.
later.
Okay.
But so he brings her home,
Mm-hmm.
and we start to work. I take her to the beach. We start, exercising. We start just really pressing into identity, and I just loved on her,
Yep.
and I didn't know this at the time because I didn't have a grid for it. Okay, I'm not a jealous woman. But I had no idea the depth of what that meant for her in her journey and the identity. And when we talk about the jealousy thing, her experience, right, is she's this 5'9" bombshell gorgeous,
Yeah.
big, booming personality
Yep.
that other women would be super intimidated by. They
Yep.
would always feel like she was come out for their man, their
Yep.
husband, their whatever. And probably rightly so, right? She, had a reputation and whatnot. But that was her experience. That was her story. That
Mhm.
was attached to that identity, right?
So again, going back to the big deal that was you trusted her even.
Yeah. Well, and I trusted you,
Yeah, exactly. I
right?
mean, that's what I'm saying. You trusted me, trusted her, and to bring her home. And it really was about healing her and loving her well,
Yeah.
uh, to love her to healing, right?
Yeah.
And so that
So,
was
she, later admitted that she was always kind of like on guard, like, for the first little
when's she gonna
while,
kick me out?
when am I going to kick her out, or is it safe to talk to Carlos when I'm not in the room, or you know what I mean? Not all of those different things. We kind of, later were able to have these kind of conversations. She's like, yeah, man, there was so many times where I was like, all right, here it comes. She's gonna tell me to leave. You know what I mean? Like, and I was like, really? Like, I just didn't, it didn't even cross my mind, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
And it was crazy because she was there that whole season that, we both got married. And
yeah.
then it was,
We took her to events with us because
yeah,
Chantel and
she
I were
came to
committed.
our first event.
Yep.
So then this is where, like, at the same time where she was living, she stayed in our spare bedroom. Um, we had a neighbor two doors down.
Now this neighbor, he barbecued a lot.
Yeah, so
He cook out a lot. Friendly Mexican guy, you know.
lots of kids. They had a
Yeah.
trampoline.
There, I think our kids were mingling a little bit because they were 2 doors down from us. And
Yeah,
I remember, I think I was digging out some tree or something, or he was. Which one of us was? Was it me?
I don't know.
And I think it was me, and he's like, I need to help you with that. Like, and he came over and he just went to work on it. And we were pulling some tree out of our front yard, I think. And
So
and then he and I connected.
he lived with his baby mama.
Yeah.
Okay. So he was raising two of her kids, and then they had two kids together. So that was baby mama. They had lots of drama. And then all of a sudden it was like a big spontaneous combustion.
Yeah.
Right. So he got kicked out. He was kicked out of the home, and we kind of noticed, we weren't like great friends. We just knew each other. We had them over for barbecue, those kind of things.
Yeah.
But we noticed him like sleeping in his truck,
Yeah.
like
Like,
those kind of
are you
things.
sleeping in your truck? Like, what's happening? You
But
know?
I and that was where I had this discernment and was like, Carlos, I really think you should connect with Rogelio. Like, man, I feel him.
Yeah.
And so Carlos did. And
And it was interesting because for me, it was kind of, you know, the guy had tattoos on his arm and his chest, and like I'm like, isn't it? You know, I love my wife. This is a guy now. This guy, I don't know about this, but I trust my wife, and there was nothing worrying about that. Again, we had agreed there wasn't going to be that jealousy, but I was like, the tattoos are what kind of threw me off, to be honest. I was like, this guy's
really,
got tattoos, and yeah, initially for sure, man, he was like covered in them. I'm like, this guy's some kind of
it's so funny because
gangster,
I
and
get to learn about
all my
just how
judgment.
judgmental he was when he was faking not being judgmental.
Well, I was working it out, all right. I was flexing some new muscles, man. I thought it was wrong to get tattoos and
But
a
you married a
sin.
woman with
I
tattoos.
know. I was
Oh
getting
my
over a lot of
goodness.
stuff. I married. You drank too.
So anyways, Carlos
In
does.
comes
He
Rogelio.
goes and reaches out to
Woo,
Rogelio, and he,
my man.
obviously had to go a whole different way. He connected with them on business. Rogelio's a
Yeah,
landscaper, um, owned his own business at the time,
yeah,
and so anyways, he brought him in, and Rogelio wouldn't sleep in our house.
yeah,
We had a couch in the garage, and he stayed in our garage. We did have a little sink out there, but he man, it was an interesting season because he just had this sweet spirit, and obviously he had his demons, his anger, his, his past of drugs and alcohol as well. And
Yeah, even been to prison.
he had been to
Yep.
prison, and yeah. But again, beautiful, sweet, amazing guy.
Yep.
And so, during that season, it's so interesting because we had Brandy upstairs and Rogelio, and working different angles, I think, while running a business.
Absolutely.
And so I say, what do I fill my time with? Well, obviously you can see now where what I fill my time with, between my kids and these two beings, and they didn't even connect during that
Yeah.
time. So the interesting thing is,
We would sometimes have family dinners together, but
they were
they
so
never
much
really
in their
talked
own
to each other.
shit and world
Yep.
and healing that they didn't even.
Rogelio thought of Brandy as the woman that talks a lot. That's that girl that talks a lot,
Yeah.
right? Never lets anybody else have a word in edgewise.
And she thought the opposite of him, like,
That's the guy that never talks and
you
is
know,
really shy, right?
why doesn't he say anything?
That's how they described each other. I don't even know if they had, even though they lived in the same home, I
Yeah.
don't even know if they had a real conversation the whole time
No,
they
they
were
didn't.
there.
They didn't. No. And so the craziest thing is when we talk about the potluck for our celebration, like Rogelio helped, set it up.
Heck
And I
yeah.
remember Brandy, that was when Brandy transitioned and moved to Dallas. She
Yeah.
moved in with her brother in Dallas. So she then moved out of her home. So then there was this season where Rogelio stayed with us.
He did. He did.
Rogelio
It
was
was
with
really
us.
cool. He became Uncle Rogelio,
Hmm.
brother Rogelio,
Second
to
son to mom.
son to mom, that's right, to Omi and Marlise, and it was amazing. I mean, I can truly say this man became one of my very best friends on the planet, and to this day we still are very close to both of them. We'll get to that part of the story, but
Yeah.
it was amazing just to have that connection. And the next step or phase in our life, it was interesting because just this is real. Maybe all of you can relate to this, of how like sometimes you get excited, and I was really driven, and I like we got the big house, and it was not cheap. It was something I had never done before, but I was committed and excited about it. And then we hit some hard times. So we literally moved back in with mom and dad, Marley's. But this time it's like, oh, we kind of got Rogelio with us. Now we can't just throw him out, can we? And they were just amazing. When I say Phil and Marlise are amazing, because I think we were at that house, the big house, for a year.
Hmm.
And then we moved back in with mom.
Actually,
Was it a couple of years, maybe?
I think it was 2 years.
Yeah, it might have been.
Yeah.
But we did. We hit some hard times, and we had done, you know, so we knew we needed a little reprieve, and mom and dad's like, you can have the garage again. And Rogelio had one of the rooms, Mateo had one of the rooms.
And
And
Rogelio and Mateo shared a room.
yeah, that's right. That's right. That's right. And so, and it was amazing just that connection with Rogelio, and he and I did some work together in his business, and
Hmm.
and doing pools and stuff together. So
Yeah.
that was a pretty amazing journey with him during that season,
Yeah.
for sure.
And then
And then,
we moved to Signal Hill.
Signal Hill.
Yeah.
That's right. And so that transition, that's good. So I had been doing a bunch of business development and consulting.
Do we want to go there right now, or do we want to come back?
Come back to that next part.
Mhm.
Well, let's just talk about this with Rogelio, because he decided to stay there. We went from uh, the San Diego area
Mhm.
to now we were moving to Signal Hill, to Orange County.
Yep.
And
Actually, that was LA. Signal Hills, LA.
yeah, you're right, LA County. And actually, the reason why we were motivated to do that was because what had happened with Mateo, he played rugby, but then he started having aspirations of being a pro athlete. And I remember we had done some, looked into it, because at this time, through this whole process, as we're doing Epic 30 and developing our children, one of the things we were committed to then was that we were going to be committed to our children's dreams and goals. And so Mateo started talking about, yeah, I'd love to be a professional athlete. Okay. And what does that look like? Well, Poly High. I remember Poly High in Long Beach. And I remember looking at that and recognizing, and it all kind of fit together. Do you remember this? You don't remember this. This is cool. So, because of the way I was thinking at the time about for Mateo, it fit. And also, I had been traveling that direction to Orange County for a business, doing consulting business development for one of my clients out of Texas. And so I had been going there and staying in hotels in Orange County and stuff, but also recognizing that if Mateo's going to have potential, because Poly High, you can do your research on it, is one of the most revered high schools that they get professional athletes out of that high school. So a lot of people send their kids there. And so I remember that kind of being part of the motivation of wanting to move there. Do you remember this? Because I remember your little beach moment where,
Yeah,
am I mixing things up here?
kind of.
That was a while ago. Let's hear your version, right? What were you experiencing during all that time, Chantel? How do you remember it? And she's probably right. To be honest with you, there is no doubt she's probably right. But this is how I remember it. Isn't this fascinating? It's not like we collaborated here for telling this part. But she's like, and then
Yeah.
this is what happened.
No, so you started working for that company and
Yeah.
traveling,
Yeah.
and we would go with you,
Yep.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Occasionally we would go, we would stay, for a weekend here or a couple of days here.
And we were actually living in hotels quite a bit because that was part of the job of traveling and doing the
Yeah, so
development.
we were living with mom and dad, so we didn't have like, a lot of attachments or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we had left a big house, we put everything in storage.
Yeah.
Okay. We're living with mom and dad. We were
Yeah.
traveling up to LA. And at one of those points, you said, maybe we should move up here.
Mm-hmm.
You said Signal Hill or
Yeah.
something like that. And my response, I was like, hell no. Hard no. And why? Because I was a single mom. The only consistency that I was able to maintain for Mateo was his elementary school, his middle school, then I was going into his high school with the same friends, the same area, all of those different things. Like, that was important to me. That was like, okay, like I'm doing something well, right?
No.
And so I shut it down. Like, I shut it down. And so we maintained this for a little while, and then it was my niece came to visit and we went to the beach. And the feeling at the time was, okay, so he's got this new job and we've got all of this stuff happening. We're still, working with some network marketing and, that kind of thing, but nothing is really happening. Okay. It's kind of like if you have a pot of popcorn and your oil's not heating up, right? If the oil heats up enough, it's going to pop. But here I am, we've got this pot of popcorn and it's just not popping. So, I remember sitting at the beach and we had this really cool experience. There was a whale that came up and started blowing through the blowhole, and I'm just like, and I'm kind of, I'm praying. I'm just like, God, what is happening? Like, what do we need to do to make the popcorn pop, right? And I heard back very clearly, you're not open. And I knew exactly what it was. I knew exactly what it was. It was me shutting him down. Like, we're not moving. So then I kind of had to, suck it up.
That time was me wanting to move. That time.
Yeah. I had to suck it up and be like, okay, I think we're supposed to move. And it was hard, y'all. It was really hard. It was really hard for Mateo.
Yep.
It was really hard for Mateo. So
leaving those
I
friends.
don't remember having Poly High as
that.
like I just remember
I had that.
again, going back to even like me being dealt with on my lust, right? I just remember being like really, pursuant of like what needs to change in me? What do I need to release so that we can receive the popcorn popping?
Yeah.
And
So
so
good.
that was really what I felt in that. And so then we did.
That's right. It
We
was
moved to
Signal
Signal
Hill.
Hill.
So when we come back, we're going to start telling you the story about our move to Signal Hill and how that all came about, because there's some really cool things that happened there, prophetic things that we experienced even at a hotel before we finally moved there, in the progress of moving there. So we'll see you back soon.